In 1997, Apple was 90 days from being dead, not struggling, not having a rough quarter, dead, over $1 billion lost. Michael Dell famously said he'd shut Apple down and give the money back to shareholders. Nobody wanted Apple products. Nobody. Fast forward to today, Apple is worth over $3 trillion, more than the entire GDP of the United Kingdom. The iPhone alone makes more money than most Fortune 500 companies combined. But here's what nobody tells you. Apple didn't win because they had the best technology. They won because they rewrote the entire playbook of how a brand works. They didn't just sell products, they sold identity, and that changed the world. Let me show you how. Part 1. The brand nobody wanted, 1976-1997. Apple started in a garage in 1976. Jobs and Wozniak built the Apple I by hand. It was literally just a circuit board. No case, no keyboard, no screen. They sold 200 units. Then the Apple II in 1977. First mass-market personal computer. Color graphics. Ready out of the box. This wasn't a hobbyist toy anymore. It was a product for real people. The 1984 Macintosh launch is still the most famous commercial ever made. Directed by Ridley Scott, aired once during the Super Bowl, and it didn't show the product a single time, not once. It sold rebellion, creativity, individuality. That's not a computer ad. That's brand building at a level nobody else was playing at. But then it all fell apart. Jobs was forced out in 1985. Without him, Apple lost its soul. They released dozens of products nobody asked for. The Macintosh Portable weighed 16 pounds. The Newton PDA couldn't even recognize handwriting, which was its entire purpose. By 1997, Apple was hemorrhaging cash. Microsoft had won. Apple was a punchline. Until one decision changed everything. Part 2. The comeback that rewrote brand strategy. Steve Jobs returned in 1997, and what he did next is still taught in business schools. He killed 70% of Apple's products. Gone. Printers, scanners, a dozen Mac models, all dead. He drew a 2x2 grid on a whiteboard. Consumer, Pro, Desktop, Portable. 4 products. That's it. Most CEOs in crisis try to do more. Jobs did less. Then he did something even crazier. He took $150 million from Microsoft, the enemy. Bill Gates appeared on a giant screen behind Jobs at Macworld, and the audience booed. But Jobs knew. Survival first. A pride could wait. And then came the campaign. Think different. Here's to the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels. The round pegs in the square holes. They didn't show a single computer. They showed Einstein, Picasso, MLK, Muhammad Ali. They aligned Apple with genius itself. The message wasn't, our computers are faster. The message was, if you see the world differently, you belong here. This is the moment modern brand strategy was born. Before Apple, companies sold features. After Apple, companies sold identity. The iMac launched in 1998, translucent, colorful. It said hello when you turned it on. In a world of beige boxes, it was a statement, 800,000 units in 5 months. But Jobs was just getting started. Part 3. The ecosystem lock-in. In 2001, Apple launched the iPod, 1,000 songs in your pocket. Clean, simple, iconic. But here's what made it different. It was the first piece of what we now call an ecosystem. iPod plus iTunes, hardware plus software plus store. Nobody had done this before. You didn't just buy a device, you entered a world. By 2003, the iTunes store let you buy individual songs for 99 cents. The music industry had spent years fighting piracy. Apple solved it by making buying music easier than stealing it. Then came 2007. Jobs walked on stage and said 3 words: an iPod, a phone, and an internet communicator. He repeated it 3 times. The audience erupted. The iPhone wasn't the first smartphone. BlackBerry owned the market, but every phone before it had a keyboard and a stylus. Apple bet everything on touch, on simplicity, on the idea that your phone should disappear. Competitors laughed. No keyboard? No removable battery? No business apps? 6 million units sold in the first year. Then the App Store in 2008. This is where the ecosystem became a fortress. Developers built for iPhone because that's where users were. Users bought iPhones because that's where apps were. Every new iPhone owner got more locked in. iMessage, iCloud, AirPods, Apple Watch. Once you're in, leaving feels impossible. That's not an accident. That's strategy. Part 4. The brand that became a religion. In 2001, Apple opened its first retail store. Analysts called it the dumbest move in retail history. Gateway stores were failing. Nobody wanted computers in a mall. Jobs ignored them. He built a prototype store in a warehouse, obsessed over every detail. The tables, the lighting, the angle of the products, tilted just slightly so you'd reach out and touch them. Today, Apple stores generate more revenue per square foot than any retailer on earth, more than Tiffany, more than brands that sell diamonds. But the store wasn't just about selling. It was a temple. White spaces, glass staircases, genius bars instead of help desks. You don't go to an Apple store to buy something. You go to experience something. And the keynotes. Jobs turned product launches into cultural events. Black turtleneck, jeans. One more thing. The world stopped to watch a man talk about phones. Launch day lines became rituals. People camped overnight, not because they needed a new phone faster, or because they wanted to be part of something. That's not customer loyalty. That's brand religion. Part 5. The post-Jobs era and what it teaches us. Steve Jobs died in 2011. Everyone asked the same question: can Apple survive without him? Tim Cook took over. Quieter. More operational. But he understood something crucial. Jobs built the brand. Cook's job was to protect it and evolve it. Under Cook, Apple made privacy a brand value. What happens on your iPhone stays on your iPhone. While Google and Facebook built empires on data, Apple positioned itself as the company that protects you. In an age of surveillance, privacy became a luxury product. Apple Watch became the most successful watch in the world. Not just smartwatch, any watch. AirPods became a cultural symbol. The M1 chip proved they could still shock the industry. Apple's brand value today? Over $500 billion, the most valuable brand on earth. Not because they have the best specs, not because they're the cheapest, because billions of people believe Apple isn't just a product they buy. It's who they are. So, here's what every brand can learn. First, sell identity, not features. People don't buy products, they buy what those products say about them. Second, simplify ruthlessly. In 1997, Jobs cut 70% of the product line. Most companies add. Great brands subtract. Third, build ecosystems, not just products. The iPod meant nothing without iTunes. The iPhone is a brick without the App Store. Make leaving harder than staying. And finally, the brand is the product. Every store, every keynote, every Think Different billboard delivered the same promise: technology that empowers, design that disappears, and a company that stands for something bigger than profit. From a garage in Cupertino to $3 trillion. Not because they built better computers, because they built a better way to make people feel something. And that changed the world.